Right now, in this exact moment, there are systems running quietly underneath your entire life. The ocean is moving heat around the planet like a giant conveyor belt. Soil is turning dead leaves into food. Forests are pulling water out of the ground and breathing it back into the sky. None of this makes the news. None of it feels urgent. It just works every single day, and because it works, nobody thinks about it. But scientists who study these systems have started asking an uncomfortable question. What happens if some of them stop working? Not in 100 years, not as a distant warning, but within the lifetime of people alive today. And more importantly, if that happens, could people actually survive it? The planet's safety limits. For most of human history, Earth's major systems stayed inside a narrow, stable range. Scientists call this range the safe operating space, and they've identified 9 of these systems that keep the planet livable, from the climate to the oceans to the soil. As of recent assessments, 6 of those 9 have already been pushed past their safe limit, not destroyed, not collapsed, but pushed past the point where scientists feel confident the system will behave the way it always has. This matters because these systems don't fail alone. They're connected. Push one too far, and it can drag another down with it. And that's exactly the kind of chain reaction researchers are now watching unfold in 3 places at once. The ocean's conveyor belt deep in the North Atlantic, cold, salty water has been sinking to the ocean floor for thousands of years. As it sinks, it pulls warm water up from the tropics to replace it. This current is called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, and it works like a conveyor belt, constantly moving heat from the equator toward Europe and North America. However, that belt runs on one simple rule. Cold, salty water sinks because it's heavier than warm, fresh water. And that rule is now being broken. As glaciers and ice sheets melt, they pour fresh water into the exact spot where the sinking happens. Fresh water is lighter, so it resists sinking, and the whole engine starts to stall. Recent studies have found the current has already slowed to its weakest point in over 1,000 years. Some researchers now argue a full shutdown is possible within this century, while others believe the system is more resilient than the models suggest. It's a genuine, ongoing scientific debate, but if it did fully shut down, it wouldn't just cool Europe. It would scramble rainfall patterns across the tropics, disrupting monsoons that billions of people depend on to grow food. The quiet collapse of the web. At the same time the ocean current is slowing, something else has been thinning out on land, and it's easy to miss because it doesn't announce itself with a single dramatic event. It's the slow decline of the species that hold ecosystems together. Bees and other pollinators moving from flower to flower, wetlands filtering water before it reaches a river, forests absorbing floodwater before it reaches a town. None of these jobs come with a price tag, so for a long time nobody counted them as an economic loss. But as insect populations shrink and wetlands get drained for farmland, those free services start disappearing too. Crops that depend on pollinators produce less. Rivers that used to be filtered by wetlands arrive dirtier. It's not a single dramatic loss. It's dozens of small, quiet subtractions, each one making the whole system a little less able to absorb the next shock. The soil beneath everything. While that's happening in the ocean, a quieter crisis has been building underground. Healthy soil isn't just dirt. It's a living system packed with fungi and microbes that break down nutrients and hand them to plant roots. It took nature thousands of years to build the topsoil we now farm. Modern agriculture has been spending that topsoil faster than nature can replace it. Heavy tilling breaks apart its structure, and without plant roots holding it together, wind and rain simply carry it away. Combine that with hotter, drier growing seasons, and the world's bread baskets are being worn thin from below, even while they still look green from above. This is the part that connects everything else. A slowing ocean current can shift rainfall. Shifting rainfall stresses soil that's already thin, and thin soil grows less food. It's the same kind of cause and effect chain that has ended civilizations before, just playing out on a planetary scale this time. When the chain breaks, history has already shown what this chain reaction looks like up close, just at a smaller size. Around 800 years ago, prolonged drought struck the Maya lowlands. Their farmland, already stretched thin by deforestation, couldn't handle the stress. Food ran short, cities emptied out, and a civilization that had thrived for centuries fractured. More recently, a severe drought in Syria between 2006 and 2010 pushed huge numbers of farming families off their land and into overcrowded cities, adding pressure to tensions that were already building. In both cases, it wasn't one single disaster that broke the system. It was environmental strain colliding with a society that had no slack left to absorb it. That's the real danger of Earth's systems failing today. Not one dramatic event, but several quiet failures arriving at once, each one making the others worse. How people actually make it through. So if that chain reaction ever did play out at full scale, what would actually keep people alive? Researchers who study historical collapses have found a pattern, and it isn't bunkers or stockpiles. It's other people. Communities that survived environmental disasters weren't the ones that isolated themselves. They were the ones that held together, shared labor, and kept trading skills and food across a network instead of hoarding them behind one door. Even in modern collapse zones, informal community networks have consistently outperformed isolated households at getting people through the hardest years. The skills that matter most turn out to be surprisingly ordinary. Knowing how to grow food without industrial fertilizer, basic first aid when hospitals are stretched thin or out of reach, knowing how to manage water and store what little surplus a bad season leaves behind, and simply being someone other people can rely on, since trust is what keeps a small group functioning when the larger systems around it stop. Location matters too, but maybe not in the way people assume. It's not really about finding the most remote, defensible spot on a map. Researchers who study this point instead toward regions with reliable fresh water and enough land to grow food locally, places where a group could plausibly feed and organize itself without importing everything from far away. A defensible bunker keeps a handful of people alive for a while. A functioning local community with skills spread across many hands is what actually lasts. There's a strange parallel here to the deep past. When Earth's biggest disasters wiped out the dominant species of their time, it usually wasn't the biggest or strongest animals that made it through. It was the smaller, more adaptable ones, the ones that could adjust quickly and get by on very little, that found room to survive and eventually rebuild. Humans, for all our cities and technology, may end up following the exact same rule. Not the most powerful individuals, but the most connected and adaptable groups are the ones most likely to still be standing on the other side. None of this means collapse is guaranteed, and researchers are careful to say so. Many of these systems can still stabilize if pressure on them eases, but understanding exactly how they could fail and exactly how people have gotten through similar failures before is what turns a distant fear into something you can actually prepare for.